Presidential Decree Number 1006, Lesson 1.1, providing for the professionalization of teachers, regulating their practice in the Philippines and for other purposes. Whereas the Constitution provides that all educational institutions should be under the supervision of and subject to regulation by the state, and requires that the state shall establish and maintain a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the goals of national development. Whereas in the pursuit of these objectives, the Department of Education and Culture has adopted ways and means of overseeing all the educational institutions in the country. Whereas this supervisory function of the DSC has been primarily beamed towards ensuring that the educational institutions inculcate in the studentry love of the country, teach the duties of citizenship, and develop moral character, personal discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. Whereas to implement these objectives, the institutions have relied upon their teachers, whose direct and continuing interaction with the young people and the children make them potent forces for the development of proper attitudes among the citizenry. Whereas this account for the tremendous growth of the teaching population, comprising in the civil service sector alone more than 300,000 teachers deployed all over the country. To ensure that in the immediacy and urgency of teacher recruitment, qualitative requirements are not overlooked, it has become necessary to regulate the teaching profession. Although teaching requires a number of years of collegiate study, it is the only course that it is not yet considered a profession. In recognition of the vital role of teachers in nation building and as an incentive to raise the morale of teachers, it is imperative that they be considered as professionals and teaching be recognized as a profession. Section 1, Title. This decree shall be known as a decree professionalizing teaching. Section 2, Declaration of Policy. It is hereby declared a policy that teacher education shall be given primary concern and attention by the government and should be of the highest quality and strongly oriented to Philippine conditions and to the needs and aspirations of the Filipino people, even as it seeks enrichment from adoptable ideas and practices of other people. Section 3, Definition of Terms. As used in this decree, the following shall be construed as follows. A. Teaching refers to the profession primarily concerned with the classroom instruction at the elementary and secondary levels, in accordance with the curriculum prescribed by National Board of Education, whether on part-time or full-time basis in the public or private schools. B. Teachers refers to all persons engaged in teaching at the elementary and secondary levels, whether on a full-time or part-time basis, including guidance counselors, school librarians, industrial arts or vocational teachers, and all other persons performing supervisory and administrative functions in all schools in the aforesaid levels and legally qualified to practice teaching under the decree. C. Board refers to the National Board for Teachers, duly constituted under this decree. Section 4, Creation of the National Board for Teachers. There is hereby created a National Board for Teachers, hereinafter called the Board, to be composed of the following. Number 1, Secretary of Education and Culture. Number 2, Chairman, Civil Service Commission, these are the co-chairman. Number 3, Commissioner, Professional Regulations Commission. Number 4, 2 members representing the private sector to be appointed by the President, which is which is these are the member. Section 5. Powers and duties. The board shall have the following powers and duties. A. Appoint a set of examiners for every examination who will determine and prepare the contents of the board examination for teachers, hereinafter referred to as examination, in the elementary and secondary levels of instruction to be held at least once a year. Letter B. Determine and fix the places and dates of examination. Appoint supervisors and room examiners from among the employees of the government who shall be entitled to a daily allowance to be fixed by the board for every examination day actually attended. Use the buildings and facilities of public and private schools for examination purposes. Approve applications to take examination and approve the release of examination results. C. Look from time to time into the conditions affecting the practice of the teaching profession. Adopt such measures as may be deemed proper for the enhancement of said profession and maintenance of the professional standards and ethics. D. Issue, suspend, revoke, replace, or reissue professional teachers' certificate and administer oaths. Letter E. Appoint, subject to the provisions of existing laws, such officials and employees as are necessary in the effective performance of its functions and responsibilities, prescribe their duties and fix their compensation. Letter F. Prescribe and collect examination and other fees as it may deem proper. And letter G, the last one, promulgate rules and regulations and exercise such other powers, functions, and duties as may be necessary to carry into effect the purposes of this decree. Section 6. Qualification requirements for examination applicants. No applicant shall be admitted to take the examination unless, on the date of filling of the application, he shall have complied with the following requirements. Letter A. Except those who have been engaged in teaching as herein defined for at least 5 years in schools in the Philippines and not organized exclusively for nationals for a foreign country at the time of the effectively of this decree, the applicant must be a citizen of the Philippines. Letter B. That he is of good moral character. Letter C. That he is free from any physical and mental defect which will incapacitate him to render efficient service. And letter D. That he possesses the following minimum educational qualifications. For teachers in the kindergarten and elementary grades, bachelor's degree in elementary education, BSHE Ed, or its equivalent. For teachers of the secondary schools, bachelor's degree in education or its equivalent with a major and minor, or a bachelor's degree in arts of sciences with at least 18 units in professional education, and for teachers of secondary vocational and 2-year technical courses, bachelor's degree in the field of specialization with at least 18 units in professional education. All applicants shall be filled with an office or offices designated by the board, preferably the offices of the Civil Service Commission and the Department of Education and Culture. These offices shall screen and approve such applications and issue the corresponding permits to take the examination to qualify applicants.
Section 7. Appointment of Examiner. So in this section, the board will assign a set of examiners in every examination who are recognized authority in teacher education, and their names will be revealed after the release of the results of the examination. Each of them will be compensated with an amount of not less than 5 pesos per examinee, as determined by the board, but in no instance will each examiner will compensated with more than 18,000 pesos per examination. Any examiner who is in the service of the government will receive the compensation herein provided in addition to his salary. Section 8. Scope of the examination. The examination will consist of written examinations, the scope of which will be defined by the board, taking into account the teaching plans of the Philippine schools that are legally established. Section 9. Ratings in the examination. To be considered to have passed the examination, an examinee must receive a total average of at least 70% in all subjects, with no subject receiving a score lower than 50%. Section 10. Report of the results of examination. The examiners will report the ratings attained by each candidate to the board within 150 days after the last day of the examination, unless extended by the board. Section 11. Issuance of certificate. Teachers who pass the Civil Service Commissions or the Civil Service Commissions and the Department of Education and Culture's examinations are regarded to have passed the teacher board examinations. Upon registration of the teacher and payment of their corresponding fees, the board may consider their certificates of ratings as certificates of eligibility or issue an entirely new certificate. Section 12. Registration. So in this section, as an arm of the board, the Civil Service Commission will register holders of professional teacher certificates, which registration shall evidence that the registrant is entitled to all of the rights and privileges of a professional teacher until the certificate is suspended or cancelled by the board for just cause. Section 13. Reissuance of revoked certificate and replacements of lost certificates. So if you happen to lose the certificates, then this section will explain it. For reasons of equity and justice, and then upon proper application, issue another copy, original or duplicate, upon payment of the required fee of a certificate which has been revoked. So a replacement of certificate may be provided to replace a lost, destroyed, or mutilated certificate in according to the board's rules. Section 14. Registration by reciprocity. This section entails that the applicant shall submit competent and conclusive documentary evidence confirmed by the Department of Foreign Affairs, showing that his country's existing laws permit citizens of the Philippines to practice teaching profession under the rules and regulations governing citizens. Section 15. Prohibition. So 3 years after the effectivity of this decree, no person will engage in teaching and or act as a teacher unless he is holder of a professional teacher certificate or is considered a professional teacher under this decree. Section 16. Penal Provision. A section that involves any person who performs teaching without a valid professional teacher certificate, presenting as his or her own certificate of others, giving any false or fake evidence in order to obtain a professional teacher certificate or admissions and examination, assuming himself as a registered professional teacher, or any person violating any provision of this decree will punish by a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos nor more than 5,000 pesos, with secondary imprisonment, or to suffer an imprisonment of not less than 6 months nor more than 2 years, or both such fine and imprisonment at the decision of the court. Section 17. Repealing Clause. All acts, decrees, executive orders, administrative orders, rules and regulations, or sections of them that are in conflict with the contents of this decree are thus cancelled or adjusted. Section 18. Separability Clause. Other provisions of this decree will not be affected if any section or portion has been ruled illegal by a competent court. Section 19. Effectivity. This decree became effective on January 1, 1977.